Hi there, welcome back to another installment of Going Mental. My last couple of installments, I really spoke a fair bit about, school-based programs and things that can hopefully interrupt a process where children who are at risk have had, trauma in their lives, all that sort of stuff, and how that adds risk to them having problems later in life with mental health and other health issues because obviously over time they've kind of developed patterns. But in this one, I kind of want to just focus a little bit on when we think about counselling. When, I've been a counsellor, I've been working with, people with PTSD, mainly adults. I won't pretend to say that I've worked with children, but ultimately adults have been children, and you see some of those patterns that have developed as kids follow through and become an issue for those adults. So the pattern's quite similar. The only difference is, I guess, is that with adults, the pattern's been usually longer. So if we think of the way we think and the defense mechanisms we've developed to keep ourselves safe in the best way we can, especially as children. So, predominantly we like to think that, kids come through a really good family, good role models, all that sort of stuff, and develop basic resilience um, and enjoyment of life and get all those experiences. Unfortunately, as an ex-cop, and most people, don't live in a with their head in the sand. So we're realistic and understand that not everyone has that opportunity. So understanding how those childhood experiences, or there's a term to it called ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, which I mentioned before. Go and look it up. It tells you how those things that happen to kids early on in their lives, the more exposure they have to those, the more likely they are to have a bad outcome. And so, from that perspective, it's really um, a good way to understand that, when we think about counselling, helping adults or kids who go to counselling, it's not the counsellor that does the work. The counsellor can give you guidance like a coach. You play football. There's a lot of people who are very talented, amazing athletic ability that get coached, but they're not coachable, or they don't do the work, and then they never amount to anything, so to speak. And it's no different with, um, counselling. Essentially, as a counsellor, if I give you things to do that I'm trying to break a pattern in your brain, trying to use what I call red brain and blue brain and get you to focus on doing things that will get you into that blue brain space, but you don't do it, not going to change, right? The difference with children that go through this stuff without counselling, and I know it's expensive, I know it's hard to get into, all that sort of stuff, and government stuff, unfortunately, is just not good enough. We don't do enough self-help programs. We spend money on, maybe getting psychologists who are just out of uni, got no experience. They're not really that effective. No disrespect, but they're not. And so, there's a lot of people that struggle throughout. I don't think we've ever used the model that I've seen anyway here in Australia, where we're using really smart people to go and do programs that free videos, free access. With it, we've got learning management systems out there. Why aren't we using all these different options to help people? Even just this video, right? Like, why isn't there more of these videos at that level to help people change their patterns and understand the dynamics of how their brain works, the things that can help them more. Now, not everyone can resonate with the same um, detail, but there's definitely more that can be done in this space, right? And this sort of kind of shits me a little bit, where we look at, just saying you've given money to something doesn't mean it's effective. And I don't think we explore enough about it. As I've said before, I've been in front of a guy called Ivan, who's probably a really nice guy, and you know, mental health commissioner here in Queensland, and they just don't have any power to put money behind anything. They kind of don't come up with any ideas that's any doesn't seem dynamic or innovative, and so nothing changes. We just do the same shit over and over and over and expect a different result, and nothing changes, right? Like, our mental health's not great. Our Indigenous communities' mental health's not all right. There's more suicides than there's ever been. A little girl just recently, bullied at school. I keep using this book in the background. That's my book, right? It's written about a kid who gets bullied. And part of the process of this book is to help a school, help the parents, help us look at different ways of doing more to not only prevent it, but also try and, stem the tide, so to speak. So, as kids come into school at 4 or 5 years old, we can do a lot more. We know that there's kids that's going to have trauma. Like, out of every 100 kids that probably come in, there's going to be 5 or 6% that have had these adverse childhood experiences. So, using the opportunity to build better calibration of behaviour, giving them opportunities to enhance their skills to stand up for themselves. Kids that generally have had those adverse childhood experiences don't necessarily have the parents who say, you stand up for yourself. They're so subservient because they're just trying to keep low. Their defenses are high, and so they just don't have those skills. The parents never give them the skills, so they either get angry. What you see from them is a response of defense, which is fight or flight, right? So fight is the aggressive one. So you see these kids as teenagers, when they're young and they don't do anything and they just lay low. But when they get older and bigger and feel more comfortable, they'll lash out. So you see that aggression come out. They're the people that generally will come into domestic violence if that's what's happened to them. They don't see how they can break the pattern. Their brain doesn't work that way because they formed that pattern of being so defensive, and then when they feel comfortable enough to be standing up for themselves, it's all aggression. There's no better way for them to deal with someone comes at me. All they're going to get is that aggression because that's all they've ever seen. I know I'm having a beer and some people's going to say something about that, but I think it's important that people realise that you can have a responsible drink and not get aggressive. You can still do these things. It's not all or nothing, right? We can get better at it. And so, it is what it is. But essentially, the purpose of this is really to focus on how do we help them break patterns? How do we help them think? As I said, the counsellor is not the person that does the work. It's the person that needs to do the work. The changes need to happen in here for them. So they need to either take it on board or find ways to change their pattern. Joe Dispenza in his books, he talks about reinventing yourself, changing the habits of being yourself. Because if you don't like what that is, then you do something to change that, right? Seeing and being deliberate about changing it, hopefully in what I call a blue brain way, we'll see things change for the better for you. So, understanding, okay, going back, doing a bit of self-reflection, we take some time, go and sit down, think about what's working for you, what's not working for you. And when the things that are not working for you, say, okay, what can I do to change that? How can I make that a better experience? If I've had horrible things happen to me, all I gotta do is ask myself the question, how does this help me get better? Because the moment you put that question in your head, your blue brain will activate itself to say, I have to answer that, right? Whereas if you go, why does this keep happening to me? Why am I so negative? Why am I so bad? Like, when you focus on that, it's a red brain experience. When you ask yourself a question, how can I benefit from this? Where's the silver lining in this for me? When you ask that, it flicks to what I call blue brain, wanting to answer that question. And once you do that, you're more likely to come up with a solution, a better pattern. So, okay, what is the good thing that come out of this? How can this bad experience actually be beneficial for me? Because if you do that, you frame it in a different way, you're asking a different part of the brain to answer it, rather than saying, why does this crap keep happening to me? Red brain will go, because you're a loser, your parents are dickheads, whatever, and it'll give you the wrong red brain answer. But if you frame it differently and ask yourself how you can benefit, you'll use a different part of the brain and you'll think of a different way out. Hope you got something out of that. Cheers, guys.